idea behind them?
Maybe I do, maybe I don't.
Well,
yeah, I kind of do. I mean, it actually, I think it's a fantastic topic because it is, it's actually a topic of conversation in my household
too, right now.
Yeah. And I think we kind of touched on it at one point. I don't know if it was in our first episode, but didn't we talk about van life and sailboats and things like that
part? And this is a little bit different, although yeah. And maybe we should talk and just do some discovery talking as during our recording.
Yeah. Let's do some discovery. Let's find out about us. Let's find out about our wanderlust.
You know what? And there is some of that. I think there's some of the wanderlust that drives some of this. So for our listener, Nick and we had been talking in the past about something that we had in common that we didn't even know about. I thought it was just, something that was on me that I was interested in, but we talked about some YouTube channels that we coincidentally follow about RV life and also about sailing, and how some of these people live on these catamarans or these sailboats or whatever, and they sail around the world. And it's amazing because people pay them on Patreon or wherever. And hey, I'm not throwing darts at them because we have Patreon people.
Oh, by the way, exactly.
Yeah, I know. Hey, so while we're mentioning it, please feel free to give on Patreon to
support us on Patreon.
Yeah. But we're not going to show you a video of us traveling around the world on a sailboat or in a big land yacht that we call RVs. Probably not
yet,
well,
anyway.
No, but that would be kind of fun for the next level. We get to a certain level on Patreon. People might pay us to leave. I know our wives might.
Oh boy!
But I mean, it's kind of, if you haven't seen any of those YouTube channels, you really should, because not only do they show babes in bikinis, and for those of you who are into the dudes and not wearing too much, also I think there's a plethora of that. But I got to tell you, some of it is just really entertaining to watch, and it's just day-to-day life, but it's so different from what we experience because they're in, I don't know, they're everywhere around that. They're in Tahiti. And you go, wow, that looks pretty cool. Or these people in the RVs, they're in Mexico, or they're in the Denali Range in Alaska. And this is beautiful country, and they take great footage, of course. But I mean, that's something that you and I share that we didn't know we shared.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that almost all of these couples or families have in common, we've actually been getting more into the family travel because we have one. And that's actually something that has limited us, I think, to make that leap was the fact that we have a family. We have responsibilities that we thought limited us. And that's why we've been kind of gravitating towards the family adventures. But on that same token, I think one thing all of these couples and families have in common, as you were saying, is they all look good. They're models, both the men and the women, and they take incredible photographs and video.
Yeah.
So one thing I think you and I are lacking, John, and this is important for everyone to understand, is we are not good looking. And we don't take good photographs.
You're growing a very nice beard right now, and I think we need to be clear on that for our listener. And
for our listener.
Yes, because I think that's a very handsome trait in you that it's a marginally handsome trait in you that I think some people would think that they might mistake you for a model.
They might. Just from the head up. Notice I didn't say neck up. I said head up.
Yeah. I know what you meant. I'm going to leave the rest of it alone. Yes, you're right. They are incredibly good looking, most of them, and which makes me hate them. But on the RV channels, that's not the case. They're less good looking, which is maybe why I tend to go to the RV channels. Now, there are some that are still attractive. Don't misunderstand. But there are also some that dude would not win any prizes in any sort of a model star search sort of a deal.
And now I hear Aerosmith dude look like a lady in the background.
Well, there's might be some of that too.
No, it's all seriousness. It is a fascinating life. It's well,
they make it look something like a fascinating life. I'm not sure it is.
It is. It's not. And if you watch a lot of these channels, if you really get into it, as we have, they do post some episodes that talk about the quote unquote reality of their particular life. And they talk about the pros and cons. And for a lot of them, there are a lot of cons. There really are. And there are a lot of things that keep me and keep my family out of a lifestyle like that. And that's a choice. It's a conscious choice. But for them, those cons, they don't matter because the pros far outweigh those little things that they have to deal with, and they're comfortable with it. I'll be quite honest. One of the biggest issues I have is public bathrooms. I have an issue, and I'm being serious. It might be funny, but I have an issue with public bathrooms. I have a lot of trouble using them consistently. I just like having my own bathroom. And you can do that in an RV, of course, but it's not the same as just having that reliable plumbing that you can go and use as much as you want without any issue. You're just paying for it. And that's one thing, as I said, quite honestly, that keeps me away from that sort of lifestyle.
I know a lot of people, as much as I would like to poke fun at you right now. I know a lot of people who have that same thought process. And so, yeah, I mean, RV parks have public restrooms, and I don't know what most people find. My guess would be if it's like national parks that we've visited in the past, they're not awesome.
Right.
Some maybe they are, but you're paying a pretty penny then if you're spending the night. So my guess would be that you would probably get used to your own bathroom in an RV or in a boat or wherever you are.
Yes, very much.
I think you would.
Now, that being said, there are other options and things that I personally have lived, my wife has lived, and I'm sure you have too, other options that, based on some of this wanderlust, let's just call it that for lack of a better term, we have done or have thought of that can kind of give us the best of both worlds. And that would be, what kind of the topic that we had discussed is, where would you live if you had the option where if funds were unlimited, if location was unlimited, you didn't have to worry about certain responsibilities, where would you live?
Well, it's a great question, I think, which is why we came up with it as a topic, I think, because it's such a wonderful, whatever. But I think it does. It makes sense because depending upon where you live, it often gives you the freedom to make these other decisions. Some of these people in the RVs, which is the ones, as I said, I've been gravitating toward, they also have their own homes. And so they might have a house in Florida or Arizona or whatever, but they still own this trailer or Class A RV, which is one with the engine in it that's all self-contained. So they may have multiple places to live. They may actually have chosen a place to live as their primary residence that allows them, because they sold a bigger house or something like that, that's allowed them to enjoy the RV lifestyle 6 months out of the year or 4 months out of the year or whatever it is. So anyway, that's one way that, depending upon what you choose and where you choose to live, it can really have a difference. But even more to the point on this, Nick, you and I were also talking about what happens if what are the places you would choose to live if money were no object, I guess, from the start, and then maybe if money were an object. If it's no object, would you live or just have multiple dwellings? Would you want to live like in an urban area, or are you more of a subdivision guy, or would you live in the middle of nowhere in the country with, 5 acres or more, what would drive you, do you think, you and your family?
That's a fantastic question. And here, let me preface this with, we live in a subdivision right now, but we are also in Nashville. So as I'm saying that, I'm actually looking out through my backyard into a 200-acre farm, where my daughter actually takes horse riding lessons. So it's a horse farm. And so, I'm in an urban area that has the luxury of having a lot of farmland in it. Nashville is very unique in that sense. So, we kind of have the best of both worlds here. But to answer your question, quite honestly, living in a subdivision is probably my last choice. And if money were no object, I couldn't give you a direct answer. I would say the dream I would have is to have a loft apartment downtown in some major metropolitan city. I love New York. I love Chicago. I love Nashville. I love Minneapolis, where I'm from. I would love to have an old, historic loft apartment with a very modern inside. And then I would work there during the week and then retreat to my nice farm on the weekends, or a cabin on the lake. So I don't really have one or the other that I would actually say I would prefer. If I had the option, I'd probably have all three. I know that's not in the cards for me. It may have been in 20, 30 years ago. We had talked about this in one of our previous episodes.
Yeah, I always have such a hard time when people say money is what if money were no object? Because then it's like saying, okay, so in makeup land, what in pretend land,
that's exactly
it kind of is. So there's a reason. I'll tell you what my thoughts are in just a second, but there's a reason that you ended up in a subdivision if you said it was your last choice. Why, if you don't mind my asking? And if it's none of our business, then that's fine. You can tell us that.
No.
Why did you choose a subdivision? What made sense to you about that?
That's kind of a long story, and I'll try to make it as short as possible. But I know we've talked about this in previous episodes as well, and I keep referencing previous episodes. It's like we have a million of them. But I guess we talk a lot. Anyway, my family and I have moved around the Nashville area quite a few times trying to figure out what best suits us. And for a time, we actually owned a few acres outside of Nashville, about 40 miles outside of Nashville. And we did enjoy it, but it didn't quite fit our lifestyle, things that we enjoyed doing. It was kind of a trek whenever we came into Nashville to work or to do whatever my daughter needed to do for her dance or whatever activities we had going on for. It was just kind of a trek getting out there. And there were a few luxuries that we missed, internet being one of them. And, when you and I work in an industry that is very dependent, or at least a part of the industry that's very dependent on the internet, it's kind of tough when you don't have it. So we moved back very close to where we had that property. We actually bought a house in a small town, which is another option that we didn't talk about as a small town. We lived downtown in the small town. It was great. We had a lot of friends. We could walk everywhere. It was safe. But again, it was a long way away from our lifestyle. And so when the opportunity came to move back into Nashville proper, really there are very few options when you move back into the city. I'm sure everyone is aware how much Nashville's been in the news lately because of its just, for lack of a better phrase, call it extreme growth. Nashville is booming. It has been booming. All you see in the skyline are cranes and buildings going up everywhere. And that made the property value all over Nashville skyrocket. So the part of town that we would normally look at or we would want to live in, we just can't afford. And to be able to live in the city and to live in the size house we want with the yard we want, all of the options that we want, the best option for us was a subdivision. And it's a great subdivision. I love my neighbors. I love my house. I love my yard. And I absolutely love where we're located, but it is a subdivision. And could we have sought other places? Absolutely. But we were in a hurry to try to beat the market in reality.
And it sounds like that played out pretty well.
It did. And I'll be honest, we're a little bit house poor right now, but that will turn around. It's not it's not strangling us. It has in the past, not this place, but in our family history, we've felt that before, but we were smarter about our finances this time, and it was worth it to get back into town. It was worth it to get back to where we wanted to live, or at least in that vicinity.
One thing and so let me just level set here. We are also in a subdivision, but in a small town, about 25 miles from Madison, Wisconsin. If you're familiar with Madison, it's the capital city. It's a big college town.
Beautiful city.
It really is. It's a nice town. The only capital city in the country built on an isthmus. Just a little. Yes, you're welcome.
Good little nugget. That's a good nugget
for you. If you would like to use that, you will win lots of. You won't win anything, but I mean, it's something to know at least. So we're 25 miles away from Madison, a town of about 250,000. So kind of a smallish town, nonetheless. The reason we chose where we did was our son. He was coming into 8th grade when we moved here 16 years ago. And we wanted to be in an area where he could get to know people and his classmates and so on. Not an ideal time to move just before high school. Maybe second only to in high school, which is a tough time for kids as well. Anyway, long story short, it worked out. Yeah.
Can I pause you there for a second? Please. Because that it's a rabbit hole, and I apologize, but have you asked him how he felt about that? And the reason I ask is because between my 9th grade and 10th grade year, I also moved. And quite honestly, I loved where I came from, but I loved where I went even more. And it was a fantastic move for me, and it was wonderful. So I'm just curious to know if he felt the same way.
Yeah, it was absolutely a good move for him, and he would say that as well, and has said that as well. But when you're going into it, you don't have the benefit of hindsight. So as parents, you kind of go, I just want to make sure he has every opportunity to, be as successful as he can in making friends and getting to know people and so on. And we were blessed with that it's a small town, 5,000 people. And for some, that's even difficult to imagine, but it's a very friendly town, and you get used to it. And it's much larger than the town I grew up in, if you can believe that.
Nice.
So, yeah, I know. Exactly. Nice. So
I went the reverse. I went from a town of 2,500 to a school where the school had 2,500 students in it. So I went the opposite direction. But anyway, go on. I'm so sorry.
Well, no. That's anyway. So that's the reason we ended up where we did in the subdivision. Now we're empty nesters, and we can kind of do whatever we want. And we've talked about that. We've talked about the country place with 5 acres. And incidentally, you know what happened when the farmer stepped on a rake? He got a couple of acres. Anyway, so I know you're going to use that. So that's something we've talked about doing because we kind of have the freedom to do it now. The point is we also have a granddaughter now, so we don't want to be too far away from her. So we have this limited scope of area that we can live in because my wife, neither of us want to be too far away from them. The question is how far. She's thinking like a few blocks away, which we are currently. And in reality, I'm thinking more, 40 miles would be fine. So we have to talk through that a little bit, but that's why we ended up where we are, but it's not necessarily where we're going to stay. I don't want to move. Again, we've moved a whole lot over the years, but I could see maybe one more if it were to the ideal place, which to me right now would be someplace in the country with 5 acres and a nice little hobby farm or something like that. That might be fun.
That would be a lot of fun. And you actually, you bring up 2 very good points about 1, moving, and 2, family. So my wife and I are in a very unique situation. I guess it's unique. But it has limited us to, we've had opportunity to move for work and there has been opportunity that might have made our life easier in some senses, but we have stayed, one, one of the reasons recently was for my daughter's school. We absolutely love where she's going to school, and we would love for her to be able to graduate from that school because it has a great reputation, and she loves the people, and we love the people, so on and so forth. So that's one reason. Another reason is, and this is the unique situation. My wife's family is here in Tennessee. Now we live between them. We've got some we live in what we call Middle Tennessee, some that live in West Tennessee, and some that live in East Tennessee. But we are within a few hours of family for her. My daughter's grandmother and grandfather live in East Tennessee. Unfortunately, my mother passed away, but she lived in Minnesota, which would have been a lot more difficult for us to be able to go back and forth. So it's family has been one of the other reasons we have stayed where we are, and also have considered moving to Minnesota for the same reason. It's difficult for us on the same token because we don't have someone who's just down the road. Her grandparents still have to drive 4 hours to get here. So it's a little bit more difficult, but we don't want to move that direction either. That being said, one of the reasons we haven't taken that leap to go, let's say, to Europe and live for a couple of years, or to move to Colorado to experience the mountains and live for a couple of years, or even get on the road, what we talked about earlier, van life or in an RV, is simply because we don't want to be away from family, her family specifically, but we don't want to be away from family. And then on another token, another similar thing, my dad, who is still alive and very, very well. He spent many years, I think 35 years on the Minneapolis Fire Department. He did have a farm in Minnesota. So I got to live both in the suburbs, in the city, in the country. I had a lot of opportunity in growing up. So I've experienced a lot of different ways to live. But after he retired, he moved out to North Dakota and bought a whole bunch of land out there, just to retire and live on. And he's really enjoying it. And I've completely lost my point, so I'm going to stop there.
No, but it's awesome. That's a great point. But I mean, regardless of the one you were making, about being close to family and not necessarily close to others, because North Dakota is not just around the corner.
Close. Right.
No.
And it's not easy to get to. You know, it's a flight from here to Minneapolis or here to Chicago, and then maybe to flight from there to Bismarck.
Fargo or wherever.
And then it's another 2.5 hour drive from there. So it's.
Is he near Fargo or where is he?
No, he's the other side of the state. He's actually closer to Montana.
Oh, got it. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'm with you on the family thing. We're an hour and 15 minutes from my mother, and all of my family is within 2 hours probably. So you're right. That is a big thing. However, I'm finding the older I get, the less tolerant I am of winter weather in Wisconsin. And I have every intention in ensuing years to be renting a place in Arizona for a month or two and just taking off during a couple of the winter months, because dang, if you live in the Midwest or you live in the North, you know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
It just gets old after a while. Minnesota's great. Minneapolis is great in being a big city and in, a cold area like that. And nobody is better at moving snow at the airport than MSP. However, that said, I still don't like it. And whether it's shoveling, a half inch of snow or an inch of snow off the driveway because it happened to snow a little bit last night, I haven't started up my snowblower in 2 years, because that's the only snow we get is half an inch at a time, it seems like, or an inch at a time. and so the snowblower hasn't even run. So I got to get out there in the driveway and do the shoveling, which sucks.
Well, let's talk about that too, because I'm sitting here in Nashville, and today it's going to be close to 70 degrees. Not normal for this time of year. I'll just be clear about that. But it's warmer down here. It's warmer year round than it is in Minnesota. Even though I love being in the 50s, I am actually a cold weather person. I prefer the snow. I would much rather live in Minnesota with snow. I'd even go further north so I could have more snow. I love snow. I love cold. My wife is definitely not like that. I know I'm sick. And there are I realize there are very few people that are like me. I do know quite a few of them.
There are 3 people like you in the entire country.
Give me a little credit. There's at least 4.
Maybe 4.
That being said, that I think too makes a difference. Again, I love Nashville. I really do. I call it the Minneapolis of the South in many respects. But it is, I do love the city. We do have a lot of fun here. However, one of the reasons we live in Nashville is because my wife doesn't like the cold. I can live here because half the year it's tolerable. I don't like heat. I'm the opposite. I hate heat. If it gets up past 75, 80 degrees, I'm miserable. Humidity, I'm miserable. So, there's definitely a trade-off when it comes to choosing where you live based on that as well. I would be more than happy to move north.
There is. I have a Harley-Davidson sitting in the garage right now that its owner will not ride in weather that's below 40 degrees and very seldom below 50 degrees. So, yeah, I'm jealous in that it's going to be almost 70 there today. If it were me, I would be riding my bike. Instead, it sits in my heated garage because I don't want to have to get out there and clean it off and do. It's let's just say that it's in my garage that needs to be heated because I don't want to go out and check on her and wipe it down when it's 70 degrees someplace else and only 20 in my garage.
Drops into the 30s and 40s here. I've got the garage door open and I'm putzing in the garage because I know I'm not going to sweat that bad.
Wow.
I'm going to be comfortable. My fingers might get a little cold, but they can warm up. That's what fireplaces are for. So I'm completely the opposite. I get more active the colder it gets.
Well, that's delightful. Do you ski?
I haven't in many, many years, but I loved to ski. I love to play hockey. I did all of those outdoor sports in the winter. Yeah.
Well, I can see that. I've done that too. It's just that, and you're much younger than I am. So when you reach my advanced age, you may find that you're a little less tolerant, but I could be wrong.
But you're the advanced age of just below 50.
Yeah. Let's just leave it alone.
You're not that old, John. I know I make fun of you for being old, but you're not that old.
Well, yeah, but
you're only as old as you feel.
Some days I feel really old, but yeah, most of the time it's pretty good. But it's just winter that it does it to me. And you know what? And you are definitely not alone. I have a very good friend who lives in the UP of Michigan. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the Upper Peninsula that's northern Upper Michigan. It's just he's
on the Lake Superior side.
Yes, correct. So it's just north of Wisconsin, which tells you how far north it is. They are on the Lake Superior side, just not far from Lake Superior, and it's cold. They have snowmobiles because they can actually use them every year. He has this guy, and I love this guy because he measures success in cylinders. So based on his snowmobiles and his 4-wheelers, he's got a couple motorcycles. He has 2 or 3 trucks. And at one time he told me he was up to 84 cylinders.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
He's counting everything, though. I mean, he's counting his snowblower and I think his weed whacker and everything is probably being counted in those 84 cylinders. But it's still a lot. I mean, I've counted mine, and I don't even come close to that.
That's funny. Well, on that same note, I'm going to totally contradict myself. I would absolutely love to live in Alaska. Wow. I think that would be so much fun. The only problem is I would miss coffee shops. So I'd probably have to live in like Fairbanks or some other large city in Alaska so I could get best of both worlds.
Or maybe you could just open a coffee shop.
I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like coffee.
I tell you what, as I have seen some of these YouTube videos of especially Alaska with some of these RV people. It is beautiful country.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous.
It's just incredible, and not necessarily for this time of the year, but it gets in it's in the 60s and approaching 70 for much of the year for a lot of these places. But I mean, this Denali, I saw a video that somebody shot of Denali, the mountains. It's just incredible how beautiful it is. So, I'm with you. I could handle Alaska, probably not year round though.
See, I would, you were saying something about right now, the weather right now. I probably love the weather right now up there.
Yeah, you probably would. Weirdo.
So, yeah, I am a little weird.
I'm just kidding.
I accept it. I embrace it.
I'm sure you do. So we've talked about several different ways or places that we would consider living. And like I said, you and I have talked about this before with the, wanting with the wanderlust that we tend to have or seem to have, wanting to consider living someplace else, and I could really do the 8 months a year here in Wisconsin and then 4 months on the road with an RV going wherever the weather, draws us. And right. For me, it would be different weather than you would. I mean, you'd be looking for something colder. Your wife would be going with my wife and me because she's smart and likes warmer weather.
She is that. She is very smart.
But my wife is much more into glamping than camping. Yes. And so she she definitely is not a big RV fan. And we've talked about it a little bit, but she kind of.
We have.
Yeah.
No, you and I have too. I don't know. You probably meant your wife at that point, but my wife and I have been having the same conversation. So back to the very beginning of our conversation. Yep. We have started one of my resolutions for 2019. I'm happy to say we're in 2019. I shouldn't have said that because I think we're not even launching until 2019. But anyway, I'm going to start again.
Matter.
One of the resolutions that I made for 2019 was to camp more. I have a tent. We bought a tent. My daughter wants to learn how to camp, and we actually experimented with it the other day. We pitched the tent on our porch. Not out in the backyard because it was going to rain. And I had a campfire. We roasted hot dogs on the campfire, in our fire pit. Well, outside the porch in the fire pit. It's the long trek. Every time we had to go into the kitchen, I said, I have to hike back down to base camp, 30 feet away. Yes. So we decided to camp out on the porch, and it was phenomenal. But my wife didn't make it halfway through the night. She had to go and climb into our bed because the ground was a little bit too hard. Now, I know there are other things that we can do to make the outside living more comfortable. Sure. But if we're going to camp, if we're going to hike into places and camp, we're going to have to get used to that. But we've had that conversation about what does camping mean? What kind of camping do we want to go to? The van life, the overland, which you were talking about, seeing some of the pictures of Denali. Yep. One of the videos I'm watching on YouTube is a wife, husband and their young daughter who are overlanders. So they have a Toyota 4Runner with a trailer on the back, and the trailer has a tent that is on the top. So I'm sure you've seen the folding tents that are on the top of vehicles. Yep. They have one of those, and it's phenomenal. Just what they have and how they live. Again, there are probably a lot of cons that we would hate, and definitely the glamping aspect. It's not very glamorous, and I think my wife would definitely have trouble with that. I don't blame her. I mean, it's a tough life, and that sort of camping is very rustic. And I think I'll even say it's not just her. I would probably have a lot of problems staying like that. Staying like that for a long time. I think it'd
be easy for me. The only problem is I would have to pick up my wife at the Marriott when I'm done.
That's kind of my point. Exactly. I'm fine sleeping out in a tent. I'm fine doing all of that until it gets hot and humid. Then it's done. Then you have to pick me up at the Marriott.
That's right.
But yeah, I would have to do the same thing. I don't think my wife could do it for very long. Yeah. I don't even think my daughter could do it for very long. My dogs, they'd be happy as
of course.
get out. I was going to say pigs and shit, but I don't know if this is a family episode.
I'm with you. I think depending upon the vehicle I'm in, an RV, for example, I wouldn't be as much the guy with the tent on top of the vehicle, because I know what it's like to sleep on the ground, and that sucks. There are some great, air mattresses and cots and all that, but I also know that a Class A RV that's $150,000 would have a really nice queen size or even king size bed, and I'd be much more likely to be attracted to that
with air conditioning.
And yes, and a kitchen, which not bad, and that restroom that you talked about as well.
The all important restroom. I can get I am pretty good at cooking over an open fire, so a kitchen is not necessarily a must have, but a bathroom, definitely,
yeah. I've seen some little campers they seem very nice, but they don't have a bathroom in them. And I'm like, well, what's the point? Right. I mean, I can sleep on the ground if I need to, but it's the bathroom.
Exactly. I always thought that maybe I would get another Jeep and get one of those panel trailers that you could haul behind it, small one. It would not for sleeping and not for kitchen, not for camping or anything. I could sleep in a tent and be happy, but the entire panel trailer would be just a nice large bathroom with a toilet and a shower.
And yes, I think that's a great idea.
Bidet. Can't forget the bidet.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're missing something. Bidet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not talking handheld shower. I'm talking a full tile, 2-head steam shower.
Oh, that's beautiful. I can see. What are you pulling behind you there? How many will that sleep? Well, if you're really drunk, you can sleep a couple probably, but you're going to have to be hammered to get in there.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yes, I can see you towing behind you this beautiful bathroom. I love that. Oh, yes. Please do.
Yes,
please do.
Well, anyway, John, I think once again, we beat the living shit out of this conversation.
We absolutely lopped the head off of this conversation.
We did. But if anyone wants to join in our conversation or ask us questions or make fun of us, we
comments and making fun. Yeah, I like that fun part.
Yeah, I love it when people make fun of us. I'm perfectly open to that. I laugh at pretty much everything, even if it's at my expense. More so if it's at my expense. And you can do so on all of our social media outlets: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tweeter. And if you want to support us and make us better and help us learn a little bit more about podcasting and maybe have a clearer voice or learn about more topics like some of the more serious things we talk about, like our last episode about financing versus leasing on automotive bills. Mm-hmm. That's a new word, automotive bills. I'm going to sell automotive bills. That's what I'm going to do. If you want to learn more, you want to make fun of us, all of those things, we also need to be supported. So head over to Patreon and follow us there and show us some love. We lust after, you said this before, we lust after all of our listener, but we love all of those that support us.
Yep. You are correct, sir.
I am correct. I'm always correct. Can you just tell my wife that?
No.
All right. Well, John, it has been fantastic. It has been wonderful. Now I want to go and try to find some land to buy or a camper to live in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
I can find one of those, but I'm afraid it's not going to be equipped the way you want it to be.
Well, let me put it this way. I'm going to work towards my fortune so I can eventually buy the farm and the loft apartment downtown and the cabin on the lake in the mountains.
And listen, if you want
I'll invite you over for coffee.
If you want Nick to have a very nice restroom camper, hey, I may actually pay some money on Patreon for that. I would love to see that. And you can put that down as what you're designating it to, because it might be the first like $20,000 floating bathroom that's in a camper following your Jeep Wrangler. I would love to see that.
That would be a lot of fun. And as we're signing off, I am actually sitting here we're talking about land and farms. I'm sitting here looking out the window at the farm outside, and there's a beautiful white horse walking right at my fence line. It's awesome.
Now you're just bragging. I'm looking at snow out my window.
I don't know. Oh, it's white. They're both white. Well, yours might be yellow.
Different. Totally different.
All right, John.
All right.
Take it easy.
That's it, Nick. You do the same. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.